judicial system, okay? And that's a choice between the steno machine or the voice writing method, okay? So what are these two methods? What are they about? First of all, the steno machine is what we call shorthand keying, okay? Any guess why we call it shorthand keying? Say it, either one.
You don't have to type out word for word.
Thank you. You don't have to type out letter for letter, word for word. May I flip this open? So, and afterwards, maybe you guys can come and get a closer look, but they have a special keyboard that they work on. That's, as you can tell, not a computer, right? That's not a laptop. How many people knew it was a special machine, right? Yeah? Okay. So that keyboard is specifically made for shorthand writing. Court reporters use finger combinations to write out words and sometimes syllables or even whole phrases, but they write them out in whole strokes. So a word like court or judge is how many strokes in shorthand? It's one stroke of, and now Gracie will know this better than I do. Do you know off the top of your head, Gracie, how many fingers come down for the word court?
5.
5, right?
But on each, like, 2 on the left and 3 on the right.
Right. So 2 left-hand fingers, 3 right-hand fingers, but they all come down at once, right? You can tell why we use shorthand. Any thoughts as to why we use shorthand? Right, they're going so fast, and you can go faster because if each stroke gets you a whole word or at least a syllable in a word, you're going faster than on a normal keyboard. Each stroke is only getting you 1 letter. So you can take more words per minute. So you might be a very fast typist. Do we have any fast typists in here? How many would you say you type?
100.
About 100? Great. 90. How fast are we talking? Anyone know?
180?
Good guess. So yeah, so they say like NPR radio voice speech, they say that's about 140, 160. That like, hello, you've turned into all things good on NPR. Why do they all do that? So that's about 140 to 160. Most of us are probably, like 160, 180. I'm a Yankee, I'm probably really fast. I probably am doing 180 and maybe even up sometimes. But yeah, so is
Is that a Yankee?
Yeah, I'm a Yankee, meaning I'm from up north. If you are typing 90 to 100 words per minute, that's really fast typing. That's awesome. Is it awesome enough to keep up when you've got 2 speakers back and forth questioning? Maybe that questioning gets heated and it gets up there 200, 225 words per minute, and you've got to notate who's speaking back and forth. Where were you on the night of blah, blah, blah? I was there. Didn't you say you were da-da-da? No, I said blah, blah, blah. Now imagine that.
Say we, and for the indentation and all of that, when I'm doing my Q&A, I have keek and cat.
See? Because isn't it easier to say than period, or to say qui than question mark? By the time,
see, if you say period, you know our computer
That's
types it
the
out,
other thing.
types out the word period.
Perfect. I'm glad you mentioned that. Does everyone understand what she means? If I say question, I might mean right question.
Right.
If I say answer, I might mean right answer. What she wants is a little Q and A marker to say question and answer. She doesn't want to say question or period. So she has these little made-up terms that aren't going to conflict with any other words in the dictionary. Qui, cac, purk. Right? And they're also, you notice, 1 syllable, easy to say. That's the key. It's fast, it's easy, and your computer's not going to mix it up with anything else. So you do have to learn some code. Voice writing is not as easy as, what am I doing in school? Just give me the software and I can already talk. If that's what you think voice writing is, it's not what she's doing, right? Both of these methods can be what we call real time, meaning that she's got a connection to her computer, so even though she's writing in shorthand, Marcia could see everything coming up instantly in English. Her clients can see everything coming up instantly in English. Sonia, likewise, if she's voice writing, her software is instantly translating her verbal input to text, okay? And I'm gonna have you skip again. Skip one more time for me. Skip one more time for me. Okay. So really quickly, I want to get into some other basic information on the program before I turn things over to Sonia and a little bit to Gracia as well. So you're going to have a couple of different scheduling options here at Brown. I want to talk about that quickly. Here on campus, you can choose between a full-time and a part-time program, okay, on campus. Online, it is specifically a part-time schedule, okay? Here on campus, our full-time students are day students, okay? They attend school during the day, that's Monday through Thursday, from 8 o'clock in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon. Okay, so, and that is full-time, 8 to 2:30 Monday through Thursday. There's also a part-time evening schedule where students are here 3 nights a week, okay? That is Monday, Tuesday, and, I have a typo in there. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, it should say, not Wednesday. Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday from 6 to 10. Okay, that's evenings on campus. Online, it is a live online program. When I say live, that means that students are logging into sessions from their computer at home. So they are online live with their, instructor and other students in their class. And that's Monday through Thursday, again, 6 to 10, okay? In the online program, you don't necessarily need to be in front of your computer 4 nights in a row from 6 to 10. You'll have a schedule of when your classes meet, and it's usually about 6 to 8 hours of live instruction in the online program per week. Again, that's live via internet, of course, okay, which is what makes it online. All right? Obviously, as a campus student, you have use of all our facilities, computer labs, rental equipment to get started. Okay, in the online program, you obviously don't have access to those things. You must own a computer, and specifically that needs to be a Windows-based PC. You must have an internet connection at home. It's not going to work if you have to run to the library, especially with our workload, and also with some of the software you'll need to put on your own computer. You can't do that at the library. So we need you to have that set up at home if you're going to successfully complete the online program, okay? Same with rental equipment. While we have it for you to get started here on campus, we don't have that for online students. So online students do purchase equipment to get started, okay? All right, let me stop here and see if I have any questions before we move forward. Talked about schedule, talked about method. Any questions so far?
Please, I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
How many?
In order to complete the course, what's the total?
What annual to?
Oh, we'll give that to you in a second. Yes, that's coming. Thank you. So I'm going to have you move forward a bit, please. And I'm actually going to move forward from here too. You know what? Some of this stuff I'm going to have you guys help me with. So I'm going to go backwards a little bit. Okay, so we know that there are 2 methods of court reporting, and this will answer your question. We know that there are 2 methods of court reporting, okay? So what is the curriculum for these 2 methods? What are the similarities? What are the differences? Well, first of all, let's talk about the similarities. All court reporters have to learn to put together a transcript, okay? That's a verbatim record of what was said. So that means everybody's final product should look the same, regardless of whether you're a voice writer or a stenographer. That means there's certain classes that you're going to have, regardless of whether you're on a steno machine or a voice mask. Everyone's going to need to take legal terminology. Everyone's going to need to take medical terminology. Everyone's going to need to take all the classes that teach you how to put together a transcript, from the punctuation and proofreading classes to some of the classes we have that are pretty much like mock trial, okay? Everybody's got to do that. But where you're separate is in a certain percentage of your courses are traditional academic, and the other courses are what we call your speed building curriculum, okay? And before you start the speed building curriculum, you either begin with steno theory, which is learning the language of the keyboard and memorizing the keyboard, or you go to voice theory, which is learning the software. They're not really focused on a keyboard, it's not a motor skill. It is a computer skill though, it's a software they have to learn to use, and they have to learn how to use their voice to voice right. That's what they're doing in voice theory. When you're done with voice theory, whether it's 1 or 2 quarters later when you've completed voice theory, you move on to speed building. And each speed class goes like this. You're constantly practicing dictation at a given speed level, and you're constantly getting tested on your accuracy at that speed. There's a series of tests to pass at that speed, and whenever you pass that series of tests, you move on. It has nothing to do with finals and midterms. You can take these tests all throughout the quarter. And that means you can pass the class at any point in the quarter. So a quarter is a 12-week period here, but maybe you complete that speed class in 7 or 8 weeks. Maybe it takes you 12 or 13 weeks. It can go into the next quarter. For some people, if they're having a struggle at a specific speed level, it could take 15 or 16 weeks in that speed class, even though their friend was in and out in 7. You get what I mean? Every speed class is different for you, okay? And every student's progress in speed is an individualized thing. It's based on your own capabilities. So what does that mean about program length? Program length is directly affected by how quickly you build the speed, okay? And building speed is not only picking up the pace with your fingers or with your voice, but you're turning in transcripts based on accuracy. So it's not just how accurately you took it down, but how accurately you edited it. What if you get all the right strokes, but you're putting the wrong words in? Because I said the word affect and you wrote effect. That's a point off because that's not verbatim. So it's not just about memorizing the keyboard, it's about how well you're proofing and editing those transcripts, because it's based on accuracy, words, spelling, even punctuating at a certain point. Okay? If something is supposed to have a hyphen, if it's supposed to be abbreviated, if there's a place where a comma belongs and you skip that, points get off. So that's all a part of your progress too. Okay? Speed building affects this. However, even with that speed building component and the fact that it is pretty individual, I'm going to tell you this. On average, who do you think typically goes faster in building speed? The machine students or the voice students? Exactly. Okay? Voice writers tend to move faster. They don't have an easier goal in that 225 words per minute is the graduation goal for everybody. But I would say their start is easier, and here's what I mean by that. They get to start out speaking English to the computer. It's going to be at a much slower pace than you normally speak English, and you're typing 100 words per minute. That's like what you're going to be voice writing at first, okay? But still, it's not a totally foreign concept. If I say repeat these words, concentrate on your volume, your breathing, your enunciation, but these words are in English. Before we've taught you any of the code, before you start perking and keeking cacking, you're speaking English, right? So we can give you a certain speed. It's not that hard to keep up. When you're a new steno student, do you know that keyboard yet? Not at all. And we don't expect you to. It's like learning to play a piano when you've never been on a piano before. We know you're new. But first you're going to have to get that finger memory down on the keyboard. And we're going to start teaching you the shorthand words, but you're going to have to learn to translate everything you hear into shorthand. Everything that they key is shorthand. They're not doing any English keying. So you're learning a whole new language with your fingers. Can we give you 100 words per minute when you start? Oh my gosh, you'd look at us like we were crazy. It would be impossible. It would be impossible. We have to give you words and go like this. Court. Judge. Word. That might seem agonizingly slow. Every time I do that example, it like kills me because I want to go faster. But Gracia, you remember when you first starting out, you need every bit of those seconds
Yes.
to remember that stroke when the stroke is new, because you don't know it yet, right? If I go any faster than that, it would be like,
Not only do you not remember, but it's really uncomfortable at first because the finger positions are just not, you're not used to it.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Thank you for mentioning. Your brain is naturally going to want to do what it does on a keyboard all the time. And we're going to say, no, your brain is not used to these multiple fingers coming down. After a while with practice, it will get there. You will get there.
And
But
you
it-
start misspelling everything on the computer.
Right. At first, right? At first, your brain is trying to, it's like learning a new language if you've ever had to learn a foreign language, which I've been in a foreign country and was learning the language, and there's this weird part you get to where your brain starts to, like, one sentence will have both languages, and you're like, what am I saying? Or you're speaking to your English-speaking friend and the other language seeps in, and you're like, I'm so sorry, what am I doing? But in the beginning, that will happen. Now, after a while, that goes away. But in the first few months, that will happen because you're getting your brain used to all of this. So we can't start off that quickly with you. So you really do start off much slower to get to 225. Okay? Because of that, the program length is a lot different for these two groups, as it should be. We could not expect a steno student to have to keep up with that pace. So for your full-time steno student, you need to be prepared, I would say, for at least a 3-year training period. Okay, maybe even 3.5 years at least. I've been here 14 years. Everyone asks, have you seen people do it faster? And I have, but they were not average. They were exceptions, okay? So on paper, is it possible to do it in 2.5 years? It is, but that's not typical, and it's important that you know that. Most steno students are doing at least 3 years and sometimes more. And especially if you're going to school part-time in that machine, definitely more, okay? You're gonna need at least 4 years, maybe 5, you know, because you think about it, if it's gonna take you 3 years full-time, you're gonna need that much more time when you're taking half a course load. And most of my part-time students are working during the day or doing something else that means they need to go to school part-time. So you're not practicing all day like your full-time peers. You know, you're not going to be able to progress the same way if they're putting in 5 hours a day practicing and you're putting in 1 or 2. It's not that you're a bad student or you can't get it. It's that if you don't have as much practice time in anything, you're not going to progress at the same speed. Any skill, right? More time you're able to put in, the faster you're able to progress.
Thank you for this one.
Right?
Thank you.
Voice writing's different. Most voice writing students finish up full-time in about 1.5 years. Okay? If you are struggling to get there for any reason, maybe 2 years. Okay? But most voice writing students are able to complete their program in less time than a steno student. Again, because they come into speed building at a higher speed, so that makes sense. Okay? Again, if you're a part-time voice writing student, are you going to finish in 18 months? Part-time? No. You can't. You're taking half a course load. You can't keep up with someone who's taking a full traditional course load. So a part-time student may need to double that, okay? Voice writing part-time could be about 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years, part-time voice. Again, for some people it could take a little bit longer as well, all right? Don't forget that part-time means more time at school. We have a lot of part-time students because we have a lot of adult learners. More of our students are career changers than they are just out of high school, okay? And when you are balancing school and work and family, a lot of people choose part-time. If you choose part-time, you have to be able to commit more time to finishing up, okay? Just because you're a part-time student. Part-time has its advantages. It allows you to continue working, raising your family, etc. But you have to also know that that part-time half of a course load is going to be more time needed to complete the program. Okay? Okay. All right, now I'm going to stop here because I want to allow our guests to speak. And I want you all to keep in mind that when we wrap up, if you'd like, I'd like you to come up front and take a closer look at Gracia's equipment and what she does and how she writes on the machine, and Sonia's equipment as well. They both have the whole setup here so you can see what it's like. Gracia does have some extra equipment that you may not need typically. Gracia, if you want to explain here what you have. Sure.
Okay, so I have an eye condition called optic nerve hyperplasia, which means that the optic nerves did not develop when I was born at all. A lot of people who have this eye condition can see a little, I can't. So I have, my Steno machine is a standard Steno machine that just comes, it's like the recommended one for all the students to get. And that is hooked up to a computer that is running a screen reading program that will read everything on my screen, which is also connected by Bluetooth to a Braille display, which is essentially, it's a 16-cell display and it displays Braille characters. So as I type my Steno, if for some reason I had to read back, I can do that using Braille.
It's fascinating, and Gracie has been not only a hard worker, but a real pioneer around here, you know, learning how to use this technology to learn Steno. So, but yes, so with the exception of this piece, which most of our students would not have, this is her Braille reader.
Okay.
But the software on her computer and the machine she has is a standard machine that anyone here would get as a student, so you can come and take a look at it. And then Sonia is a voice writer, so she has her laptop with her software and her mask here. What I'd like to do is shift gears a little bit now to talk about the profession. We've talked about school and what you have to learn, and I want to talk about what reporters do, what the employment opportunities are, and where you find your work, okay? So to do that, I have invited one of our graduates from the class of 2017, meaning she just completed her first year in the field. And like I said, for those who were here earlier, but I'll repeat, she is currently, that's okay. I'll repeat, she is currently the official reporter to Judge Gail Flake in DeKalb County Superior Court. And today we've got with us Miss Sonia Gordon-Marseille.
Yay.
So Sonia, why don't you come on up and start by telling everyone just kind of your background before school, and then since school, what you have done career-wise in this first year. Why don't we start there, and then after you tell your story, we can open it up to questions, okay?
Well, Sonia. I started in around the winter semester 2016. I completed all my classes spring semester 2017. Graduation wasn't until August that year.
Full-time or part-time?
Full-time on
Okay.
campus. I was working for the first 3 semesters, I was working full-time as well.
Okay, okay.
This is my 3rd career. I started out as a school teacher, taught kindergarten and 1st grade for about 8 years. And from there, I went on to be an office manager for an education-based company. They transferred me here from Miami about 10 years ago. Started getting bored in the career, and my daughter was a sophomore in high school, and I decided I needed to find something that was fulfilling and something I would enjoy. Well, it just so happened, some of the people that came through my office for testing were court reporters. Started talking to some court reporters, and over probably the 2 years before I decided to come to Browns, after talking to most of them that went to school, came here to Browns.
Okay.
So I set up a tour, came here. I was supposed to start in the fall, and just so happened my assistant had a stroke.
Oh,
So I didn't get to start in the fall. I had to wait until the winter semester. So I started in January. The first 2 semesters here were strictly what Colette was talking about, theory classes that just basically teach you the software. We're not really working on speed or anything like that. So when I started speed, I did move through pretty quickly. So one of my instructors suggested they were going to be doing testing here in Atlanta the next month, that I should take the test. He goes, well, it's 3 sections to the test. You'll probably only pass the first section, but go ahead and give it a try. It's a good practice, because even if you fail 2 sections, you don't have to retake the section you fail. So
Okay.
just so happened, I took the test, and I passed all 3 sections.
Yay!
So I was certified in my 3rd semester in school. Technically, I could have started working.
Oh.
I chose to stay in school because I didn't feel like I was prepared as well as I wanted to be to go out into the field.
Mhm.
So a lot of people didn't understand that. So got certified in September of that year, continued on. I didn't complete everything, including my externship. I completed everything in May. So it just so happened a couple of the people I did my internship with offered me jobs. So I was going to Augusta, working, doing freelance work.
Okay.
But my heart was set on court.
Right.
So I was working in Gwinnett, Superior, filling in, and I was also working at DeKalb, but I was in DeKalb State filling in. And Superior Court is upstairs in DeKalb, and they were short. 2 people were out sick, and they needed coverage, and it just so happened the person I did my internship with, they asked her to fill in. And she goes, no, we're busy, but I have the perfect person who's been under my tutelage for a while. I'm sure she'll do great. And she recommended me, and here I am. I hadn't even graduated yet, but I was complete. I had completed all my courses. So I went up there. It was probably the first week in July, and it was for Judge Gail C. Flake, and her reporter was out on medical leave. So I filled in with her. When her reporter came back from medical leave, she decided that they needed a full-time floater for Superior Court and asked would I head up the pilot program for that. So I did that for about 3 months, and at the end of it, they go, well, we decided we don't want a full-time floater. So lo and behold, Judge Flake's court reporter resigned. So she goes, you see how things work out? Great. I don't want you for a floater. I want you to be my court reporter.
Yay.
So my first official day as her official court reporter was May 30th.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So,
okay.
But I've been with her for a year.
Right.
But her official as of May 30th.
Oh, good for you.
So it was a little scary at first to go from being a student to going kind of straight into Superior Court. It's a little faster, a little more demanding than being in state court.
And if I can add something with you, Sonia, do you mind?
Sure.
I want to step on toes, especially when your toes are so well adorned here. I don't know how much you know already about the judicial system, but with different levels of court, like you have state court, Superior Court, and federal. Superior Court is at the top, really. It's where we get all the major felony cases. So the crazy stuff you see on the news at night, you know, the armed robberies and the major felonies, that's not state court, that's Superior Court. 10 years ago, if you would have asked me, would a first-year reporter get that kind of position, I would have told you, well, don't count on that in your first year. That's going to need a lot more experience.
It even says that on the, if you
The
look at the
job
postings for job descriptions, they require 3 years experience doing depositions or state court.
So, if I may, a couple of things I want to point out. One, the job demand in this field right now is at a critical point. If you are worried about going through a year and a half or 3 years of school or 5 years of school and finding a job, they need court reporters. To the point that a first-year reporter is getting a job where the description says you must have 3 years experience. They need court reporters out there, the demand. And I said this to Sonia over the phone, so I'm going to say it again. 2, some of it is her. And if you're thinking about court reporting and want to be successful, just because they need court reporters doesn't mean everybody's going to have the level of success she's had. I'm going to back up here in my presentation and say there's certain attributes that are going to get you there that Miss Gordon had the whole time, okay? From the professionalism to the academic preparedness, she was a hard worker. I assume you still are because you were in school. She was sharp. She was always here. She was always on time. She was always ready to work, in addition to being really pleasant. That sounds really intense because, as you can tell, she's not this intense, crazy person. But she had all those great characteristics. I'm not surprised her first year was better than average, even in a good job market, because she was well prepared. And then I'm also going to take a little credit.
Of course.
And say that, I'm going to say some of it is also the training she got here. Again, in an economy for this job where there's so few court reporters, anyone can get a court reporting job right now. Okay, I will say that. You don't need us to get a court reporting job. However, if you're certified. However, to get the kind of court reporting job she got, I'd like to think that in part, in addition to her hard work, we push our students beyond where maybe you need to be, like here's where you need to be entry level. And a lot of people will say, well, how come you guys insist we take this class? And do we really need that? And it's like, no, but if you want to be beyond the average first level, we could stop here or we could keep pushing you to here. And obviously when she was a floater in DeKalb County, she had something special if they allowed a first-year reporter to float through Superior Court and then offered her a full-time position. So with that, I'm gonna give you the reins back, lady.
So to kind of piggyback on what Colette was saying, I recognize that from day one. That's why being certified my third semester did not encourage me to drop out and just go out in the field. I tested with 45 people and only 3 of us walked out of that room certified. And I attribute that to what I had already picked up at Brown's. So my thing was, if I'm testing with all these people that have been studying and preparing for this test for years on their own, I did it in my third semester at Brown. So I felt like if Brown's could get me prepared to pass this test within 3 semesters, what else could I pick up if I went ahead and continued? So I refused to quit.
Right.
Even going out to do my internship, my externship, in the beginning, Mark, that's the person who handles like our career services department. He sets us up on all of our externships. If you need job placement when you're done, he helps us with all of that. Well, in the beginning, he was telling everyone, is that my phone or Colette? That's Colette's phone. So in the beginning, don't show that. He was telling some of the folks, oh, I have the student that needs to do her externship. Oh, and she's already certified. Well, that became a problem for me because no one wanted me to extern at that point. Everyone wanted me to work. So I would go out to do an externship and, oh, we have this small job for you to do. Nope, I'm here for my extern hours. I'm not here to work. You're certified, why don't you want to work? I thought you went to school and to get certified. You're already certified. I'm like, nope, this is the way I'm doing it, and if you can't respect that, I don't want to do my externship with you. So it took a minute for me to find somewhere. That's why I went all the way to Augusta, because it just happened to be some firm owners who came here to speak at Brown's, and they respected what I was trying to do. So went out there for, I think, I was supposed to be for 2 days, ended up staying for 4 days. Enjoyed myself so much that when I did finish my externship hours, they were the first company I went to go work for. Here in Atlanta, I had a hard time finding that. But then in court, it wasn't as bad, but trying to get my freelance hours was tough once they knew I was certified because they were that desperate. Because you had them sending out email blasts on Facebook and everywhere else, hey, we need a reporter for such and such date. I'm like, nope, I'm still in school, got to do my externship hours. That was the toughest part of doing that.
Right.
You know, I enjoyed every second of being here. I feel like Brown's over-prepared me. When I went to take my certification test, because Brown's over-prepared me, that's why I feel like I passed my certification test my third semester in school.
So you said it was 3 parts. What are the 3 parts when you test?
Well, for speed, that's something that I guess Colette will get into with
Okay.
you. Like how she was saying that when we leave here, we're at 225 words per minute. The only section we need to be 225 words per minute is question and answer, because that goes so fast.
All right.
Because you have to say what every person is saying. So you're asking a question, she's giving an answer. I don't get a break because I got to say what you say, then I have to turn around and say what you say. So that's why we have to be at 225 words per minute when we get to the Q&A. So it was 180 was the speed for, what is it, jury charge, Sia? Or is that lit?
It's lit.
Lit.
200 is
So literature is just regular reading. If someone's just talking regular, that's 180 words per minute. Jury charge is what a judge is saying to the jury before they get ready to go back to deliberate. That was at 200, and then question and answer was 225.
Okay.
So they give us 3 separate tests. So I went in thinking I was only going to pass the 180 words per minute, but I passed all 3 sections and the written section. So I don't know. Anything else I need to talk about, or you guys have any questions? I just came back from Florida, so I'm a little hoarse.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you test out of any classes in the beginning?
Well, I will tell you this. I completed all my speed classes here at Brown's before the semester was over with. So I got through all of my speed classes in under 1 semester. So you're talking about 12 weeks I got. When you're in voice, when you leave theory classes, technically you leave out of theory 1 at 120 words per minute. And then when you go to theory 2, that's the last class you take before you can go to speed. And when we leave theory 2, most people are at 140 words per minute. So the first speed test you take for voice is 140 words per minute. Well, if you leave theory already at 140, the first test they gave us in my first speed class, I passed all 3 sections the first day of class. Well, guess what? They don't make you stay in that class once you pass. So the second week of school, I was moved to the 160 class. I think I was in that class maybe 2 weeks as well. And then so forth and so on. So that's why I was finished with all of my speeds with, you know, less than 1 semester, because they don't make you stay in a speed class.
My wife wanted to know, do you have any special study methods, any study methods help you?
Claro, ou os tipos de estudos são tudo relacionado ao ex, ou são mais para reportagem de lei, mas tem tudo relacionado só ao ex,
When you employ your study methods, do you concentrate more on the law or just the functionality?
different types.
I didn't take any law classes, I think, until my 4th semester. So in the beginning, it's mostly your speed, your grammar, your English, punctuating. I stalked our English professor here at the school, and he called me his stalker because he just happened to be the person that opened the school every morning. Well, he got here every morning at 6:30. I was in the parking lot at 6:15. So when he would get out of his car, I'd already be there, standing at the door,
Right.
and I'd come in with him while he turned off all the alarms, because when you're a voice student, until you get your equipment, you use the equipment here that's at the school. Well, since I didn't have equipment at home, I was here as soon as the school would open. There were days that I'd be here with the night students because they don't put a time limit on how much you practice. So until I had my own equipment, if I wasn't working, I was here using the equipment here.
Okay.
Once I got my equipment and we do our speed test here at school, you had 3 days to edit any tests you did. But again, you could only do that here. So if my first class was at 8 in the morning, if art opened the school at 6:30, I had an hour and a half by myself here in the computer lab to do any editing I needed to do, any practicing that I needed to do.
Okay.
And that's mostly because I lived in Swanee and I worked in McDonough.
Okay.
So I was
Whoa.
used to getting up at 4:30 every morning. So on days that I didn't have to work,
Okay.
I still got up at 4:30 in the morning, got dressed, did what I could at home, but was here every morning. So when art opened the school at 6:30, I had that extra hour and a half to get any practice in I needed. And if I didn't have anything I needed to do, I was in his classroom asking
Yeah.
questions.
Right.
You know, okay, you gave us this assignment. Can you explain to me, you know, how I got this wrong or where I went wrong on this? Because art teaches our introduction to punctuation, grammar. He also teaches a proofreading class. So I had a lot of questions for him. And even now, I still come here to do my continuing education with him.
Right.
If I have any questions from work, where I'm working on a transcript, I can email Art. Art will email me back within under an hour with
Okay.
any questions that I have or something I don't understand. It's-
I have 2 questions. The 2, I think you kind of answered when you were saying that you were still working full-time, because I still have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to see how I'm going to work around this to try to get everything done. So how were you able to do that? Because you said you were part-time or you did full-time when you were in school.
I did full-time.
Okay.
And then I resigned from my position.
Okay,
Because
okay.
they weren't being as accommodating as they told me they were going to be.
Okay.
And
So full-time means that you were coming here during the week, during the daytime?
I still went to work some nights.
Okay,
Because
because
as
I
office
do,
manager, there were still things I needed
Oh, okay.
to do after the office
Okay.
closed. So
'Cause I work in the
classes
school.
are over with here on campus for day students at 2:30.
Okay.
You might not have a class on certain days past 12. well, we do like a lunch period.
Okay.
So if you don't have any class after lunch and you don't have any tests you want to edit, I might schedule myself to be into work at 1:30 or 2. So that would give me time to leave straight from here to go to
Okay.
McDonough, and I might work until 9:30
Okay.
at night. And then on Saturdays, I worked 15 hours a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I work for the school system, so I'm gonna
That's
have
a
to
little
do,
more,
yeah.
that's a little different.
I'm
whereas
gonna
in-
have to come in the evenings.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask was the equipment you would purchase the equipment that you need for court reporting after you graduate?
No. If you're an on-campus student,
Mhm.
you get to use the school's equipment until we got our own equipment. I want to say halfway through the second semester we were
Okay.
here. So the first semester I was here, we didn't have any computers of our own.
Mhm.
And even the beginning of my second semester, we didn't, because we were in a classroom doing voice theory because we're learning the software.
Okay.
They just kind of want to make sure you're fully committed before they ask
Okay.
you to invest in
That's-
the equipment.
that's- okay.
So second and partway through the second semester, we get our laptops and our equipment. Our laptops already come with the software that we're going to need on it. You can make payment plans. While you're making payment plans, though, your equipment still has to stay here on school campus. So I made it a point to make sure I had the money to pay for it in full once we were able to get them, because the whole reason I was coming here at 6:30 in the morning was to work. So now that saved me that time where, hey, I don't have to stay on campus till 9 o'clock at night. I can take my computer home and practice at home in the evenings. I can take my computer to work with me and work on it as well in my office. So when you get your equipment, they offer the option to make payment plans, but you still have to leave it here. You can use it anytime you're here.
Okay.
Even if you're here till 9 o'clock at night, you just sign in and out your equipment.
Okay.
Once you pay for it, you get to keep it with you. That's my computer I used in school, and I still use it now for work.
Okay.
So the software they give us here is a student version. When you go out into the field, there's a professional version. All they do is, once you pay for it, they unlock it. We already have it on the computer when
Okay.
Browns gives it to us. So once I finished school and wanted to go out in the field, same software on the computer, all they did was unlock it. So everything that I had been using in school was the same thing. They just unlocked a portion of it that wasn't being accessible to us as a student.
Okay.
So yeah, same computer. So I've had this computer now for 2 years.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I kind of have two questions too. The first is, do you know anybody who did the online program? And I guess it's kind of like the real, sorry. And if so, what is the investment with the machines as far as that goes? And thirdly, did you take any federal loans to support yourself while you were in the program?
Yes. I did know a few students that went back and forth between online and on campus for work purposes. Like, of course, if you're on campus, you get to do a lot more. You get to go faster through the program.
Right.
Online is automatically part-time. So if your schedule allows it, of course, being on campus is better. But something might change in your life where it's like, hey, I need to go do this now, and it's not gonna allow me to come on campus. Or it allows me to come on campus, but it has to be at nighttime. So it's better to do it online so you're not doing that traveling. So I know plenty of students that went back and forth between the two. As a matter of fact, my last semester, I was online. Why? Because I was doing my externship. So trying to complete my externship in court interfered with that being in school in
Right.
the daytime.
Right.
Because, of
You
course,
got-
when it's
got-
court held
You got in the daytime.
So I think my last semester I had 2 academic classes, and I chose to do those online, but those were the only 2 academic classes I had, so it wasn't so bad of a deal. I did do some loans. I think by the time I completed school, it came out to like $12,000. But yeah, they have lots of federal aid, grants, financial aid, but again, I was working full time, so I didn't qualify for too many grants, but still in the end, the loan that I did take out, it ended up being $12,000. Yes, ma'am.
This may sound silly, but so when your voice is your primary instrument when you're doing voice learning, things like a little bit of hoarseness, the common cold, things
Pneumonia?
Yeah. How much does that practically affect your ability to
I
use
will
your software?
tell you this, my first big trial in Superior Court was an attempted murder trial, which as a first year student, like I said, it can kind of freak you out just a little bit. The trial was supposed to be a 4-day trial. It ended up being 9 days, including a Saturday. where we were working till 9 o'clock at night, coming in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and not eating properly because I'm sitting at a desk in front of an entire courtroom, and I don't get to take breaks when attorneys take breaks because if my judge is on the bench and she's talking, that means I'm talking.
Right.
So no break for me, not eating properly. It was my first big trial, so I didn't know everything I should have been doing. By the end of the trial, that Saturday, we were waiting for a verdict, and I was in my office waiting, and judge called me. She goes, okay, I think we have a verdict. Come on back in the courtroom. I stood up, threw up all over the place. So I'm like, I don't know if I can go in the courtroom. So the judge is still ringing my phone. We're still waiting on you. So she sent a deputy to come for me. And the deputy said she could hear me in the hallway, retching. So she runs to the judge and she goes, I don't think Sonia's going to happen. But mind you, this is a 9-day trial. It's a Saturday at 4:30 in the afternoon. There are no court reporters in the courthouse.
Right.
So if I didn't get out there to take that verdict down on the record, that could have held up the proceedings until they could get another court reporter down on a Saturday at 4:30. Where are they going to get a court reporter from? So I sucked it up, went to the bathroom and cleaned myself up, sat down, took the verdict. If you had asked me 10 minutes later what the verdict was, I couldn't have told you. Why? I had a fever of 104.
Oh my
Went to the
God.
emergency room afterwards, had pneumonia, was out of work for 5 weeks.
Are you serious? That's
So
terrible.
yes, your voice is your instrument as a voice writer. We have to treat our voices the exact same way like a singer would. So lots of hot tea, lots of rest, no smoking. Don't be around people that smoke.
Yes.
It's just like being a singer. And as you can hear now, I've been flying back and forth this last 2 weeks. So it's like you get congested, you get on a plane. So yeah, I got sick. I lost my voice for 3 days. So it's just not coming back.
Okay.
But yeah, no voice, no work.
Oh.
But as an official, that's not so bad because I have sick days and I have backup court reporters, and my judge called me Friday just to make sure I was back in town, and she goes, well, I might need you on Monday, and she goes, oh my God, what's wrong with you?
You're right.
And when I started to explain to her, she's like, I'll get a court reporter, no worries. I'm like, no, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And it's getting better. But yeah, as an official, it's not so bad when you're down. But even as a freelance, if your voice isn't there and you're a voice reporter,
Right.
you can't work. So you take that time. When I was out for those 5 weeks, guess what? I turned in a ton of transcripts. So I
Okay.
still had a paycheck
Right.
coming in because as you turn in those transcripts, you get paid for the transcripts. So not only did you get paid for the time that you're taking it down, you also get paid for the work once you turn it in. So those 5 weeks I was down, I turned in a ton of transcripts. So I was ahead of schedule with things that weren't due for like 2, 3, 4 months. And so it still worked out in the end.
Right.
Well, for one, I think Renee was telling me about this, that now they have some technology that can adapt to when you're sick. I mean, she said something like that.
You make different users on your computer.
Okay.
So me, if I had to go to work today, when I set up my computer, it asked me to do a mic check. And when I do a mic check and it doesn't sound like me, the computer's gonna ask me, do I wanna save this? If I say yes, so for that whole day, that's how the computer's gonna recognize my voice, because I don't normally sound like this. So if I talk like this on my regular user, the computer's probably gonna understand maybe 50, if I'm lucky, 60% of what I'm saying, which isn't bad either, because if I had to work with 60%, that just means I have to spend more time editing.
Editing, right.
You want as best accuracy as you can, because the less time you spend editing, the more time you're doing other things.
So it's important to speak clear as clear as
clearly.
possible.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And can I point something out? Don't forget you've got 2 methods going here. So what's the first, and I know I turned the lights on so you don't see this as well as you were when I had the lights off, but the first thing that we tell you to think about is your physical and mental condition coming into court, right? Because even though you're not lifting and carrying, people often call into us and say, oh, this is a great career because I don't want to do anything physical. But there is a physical need. It's just not a stand and lift physical. So for Sonia, yeah, the health of her voice matters. Also, and I don't know if it's anyone in here, but over the years we've had people with breathing issues and have had to tell them it can affect your ability to voice right. Folks with breathing issues, because they have to concentrate on their breathing, and how they're breathing. when they're voice writing. Speech impediments. Think about these things, because if you have to go into a 9-day murder trial and you've got breathing issues and you're using the voice, a lot of people forget that voice and breath are connected. You don't think about it, but all that, you know, plays in. If you would rather stenography, think about if you've got any issues with arthritis, carpal tunnel. Sometimes those are only mild issues and you don't realize you have them until you do put a lot of stress on the wrists, and then all of a sudden something flares up. But if you've already, we've seen this before, folks who had a mild issue and maybe didn't mention it when they started school. You should mention it. Yeah. And you should talk to your physician as to whether or not this is what you want to do. Even voice writers do quite a bit of typing.
And see, I will add too, when I started at Brown's, I initially wanted to do steno. And I broke my hand. So now I have a metal plate and screws in my hand. When it gets cold, my right hand gets really stiff. I'm right-handed. So Karen, who was one of my voice theory instructors, who also was steno for many years, she switched to voice. And she saw the issue I had with my hand, and she goes, if I knew what I knew now, back then, she goes, I probably would have studied both, because she got out of the field because of that. Started teaching, then you happen upon this voice, and she goes, well, now I'm studying the voice. So it just so happened she was learning the voice technique as I was coming into Brown's, and she was the one that suggested that I try the voice.
Now, I want to be clear, we don't recommend, nor do we have it where you learn both at the same time. When that instructor talked about learning both, she means learn one and then the other. When you're in school, if you had to divide whatever precious hours of the day you had for school between two methods, you would just move in here for the next 10 years, right? The time, and we've got several students here, the time it takes to learn one method, we're not going to have you divide that between learning two methods.
Right.
If all you have is 2 hours today for practice, we don't want you dividing that. Okay?
Right.
So you're going to choose one, but yeah, later on you could go back and learn the other. But and another physical need people don't think about. Sometimes folks with back issues can't sit for extended periods of time. Well, before you get into court reporting, think about, you know, these are all things, maybe nobody in this room has those issues, and I hope you don't. But if any of these health issues are a concern, talk to us about it first, because we want to be able to tell you what to expect realistically. And so it's good to notice, you know, anything, like I said, affecting, you know, your wrist or finger health, your vocal health, your respiratory health, back issues. Those are the kind of things that you might want to bring up under physical and mental condition. You sat through a 9-day murder trial. You know, now you don't have to do criminal work. There's plenty of civil work out there, but even civil work, divorces get nasty and emotional. And there are days you may hear things that are going to be really funny. I have a lot of court reporters that will come and talk to us, and you'll hear just, it feels like they're one-upping each other on bizarre stories. Some will be funny, some will be bizarre, some will be sad, whether it's criminal or not. Ever so often, you may hear about child abuse. That is heartbreaking because it is real. You may hear about, you know,
Well, I will tell you, Denise just did a civil. She's a student that's graduating, but she's working because she's already completed everything. She's certified, but she graduates next month. Yeah. Well, she filled in for a civil divorce, something with divorce, in my courthouse. So she came by to see me on her lunch break. And I always text, and, you know, how's it going? Do you need anything? They started at 9 a.m. that morning. They were there till 11:20 that night for a divorce hearing, because
it's a nasty divorce.
Judge Millay had a
War of the
criminal
Roses.
trial the next day. So he couldn't say, let's continue it till tomorrow. So he's like, we're not leaving until we get this settled. And they were there till from 9 a.m. to 11:20 at night.
Now,
Huh? No, it got continued for 2 days after the criminal non-jury trial.
fighting over who gets that dog.
Yep.
Right.
Basically, money and children. And they couldn't come to a settlement. So
I can tell you about, now this is not a typical case, and this is not typical money, and this is not a typical graduate, because he's one of our probably better paid graduates, but we have a graduate, Christopher Artman, and he makes 6 figures a year. And he had a divorce this past year he told us about, and he earned roughly $60,000 in 1 month. Now don't go home telling people that's what you're going to make out of school. Again, this is very rare, but he had a very high profile divorce, didn't tell us who, where the settlement was worth obviously tens of millions. Like these people were extremely wealthy. And it went on all month, this divorce. Like this was not one day. Picture your divorce just going on and on and on. And he was working, like 60, 70-hour work weeks to keep up with all the pages and the transcript and going in. Like this, this was a heck of a month for him. It wasn't, when you say easy money, it wasn't easy. He put a lot of work in. But he did it, and at the end of the month, billed that client roughly $60,000 off of just the transcript for these people's divorce. I'm dying to know who they were. Like, I'm like, who are these people that can spend that on just the transcript for their divorce? But yeah, so divorces can get crazy. Now, the reality that I'm glad you bring up is that some cases you can't predict how long you'll be there. Is that the everyday? No, but I will say working in Superior Court versus state, I've been in state court and we've done 2 trials in 1 day.
Okay.
Because they're pretty short, quick. They present the evidence, boom, that's it, we're done. Okay, let's call on the next one because guess what? It's only 12 o'clock. So I've been in state court where we've done 2 trials in 1 day, but they were small things like DUI, where then you go to Superior Court. I don't know if any of you know the Kavina White story, the little girl who her parents starved her near death. She was 13 years old and I think weighed 55 pounds. I did that trial.
Oh.
That was a trial that they predicted was going to be 4, maybe 5 days. Same thing, ended up being like a 10-day trial. Well, that trial ended up going so long, they ended up using 3 court reporters for that trial. And just for my portion that I did, I think I turned in like 1,000 pages. And I was only there maybe 3 days out of the 10-day trial. And it was still 1,000 because they were going from 8:30 in the morning till some nights 7 o'clock, some nights 8 o'clock, some nights 9 o'clock because they had so many witnesses, so much evidence. So with Superior Court, because there's usually a lot more at stake, it tends to go a little longer because those are our murder cases. Even with drugs, it's like drug trafficking. So you're dealing with someone who's facing a minimum of 25 years to life. So when people have that much at stake, they tend to fight harder. So here's the reality. If you want to do that level of work, you have to be prepared to do that level of work. You get what I mean? If you're fascinated by the drug trafficking and because some people, that's what they see. They're like, that seems like it would be so interesting. And it is interesting, but it comes with a lot more work.
If I can interject
Sure.
really fast, I'm doing an externship, I'm in the middle of doing externship with my, you have to have a certain number of hours of court and a certain number of hours of like freelance externship. So I'm in the middle of finishing up my court externship. So I shadowed a court reporter in DeKalb, in Fulton Superior Court. And to Sonia's point about fighting harder, we were gonna do 1 murder trial, but the guy took the plea, so that got tabled. And then the next murder trial that we did, the judge legit told the guy, the defendant, he was like, listen, this is like, I don't really know if this is going to do anything for you. You're trying to appeal and you're trying to get parole, but also this is your second charge, so I don't actually think this is going to help you at all. If I were you, I'd take the plea. And the guy said no, and we did the trial, and we did the whole thing. I mean, it was a, standard week-long process, but he said that one of the jurors had a flight to catch that Friday evening, so they had to stay and wait until they delivered a verdict.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
Again, that's not your everyday because you're not in a murder trial every day on your calendar. And that's the other thing I want to know that you all realize. A court reporter doesn't 9 to 5 sit in court. Everybody obviously not to 5 because we're talking about it going past 5. But also, are you in court every day? No. The average month, how many days are you not in court, would you say?
My judge gives me my schedule for the entire year, and I'm scheduled, unless it's a trial week, and I know what what weeks my trials are. If we're not in trial, I'm in court 1, sometimes 2 days a week.
So yeah,
Okay.
so you don't live your whole life in court.
Well, that brings me to my next questions. The first one is, who do you work for? Who pays you? And the second one is, how does retirement and all that work?
So there are different ways to work in this field. There's
Okay.
not one answer to that.
Okay.
So on one hand, you've got freelance reporters, and the majority in this field are freelance.
Okay.
The majority, okay? And I'm gonna pass it to you to say something then. Most freelance reporters work for a firm, the way lawyers work for a firm.
Okay.
This is the private side of the business. This is not working for the state.
Okay.
This is the private side. And you charge based on the service you provide. It is a business, okay? It is a business. You're an independent contractor working for another business. So if I ran an agency and I have clients that need court reporters, mostly law firms and courts, whatever, and I call and I say, Cassidy, Tuesday, there's a medical malpractice. Cassidy can say yes or no as an independent contractor. She chooses the work she takes on. She
Right.
says yes when she wants, she says no when she wants. Then I call you, you say yes, it's now your work. You're an independent contractor working with my business, my, let's say Jennings Reporting Agency, right? So it's like a business to business relationship.
Okay.
Okay? How you get paid, I'm gonna charge the client's fees for a couple of things. There's an appearance fee, so they want a court reporter to show up, there's a fee. It's usually an hourly takedown rate, so for each hour you're there taking down dictation. And then, I think Sonia mentioned transcript fees already. When they order a copy of the transcript, there's a page rate per page for every page being requested, okay? That's on originals, and there's also a lower fee, but still a fee on copies as well, okay? You split that with your agency. Usually, maybe, and it really depends on the agency and what you've worked out with them, but let's say about 2/3 of that money could be yours, and about 1/3 of it your agency keeps, depending on what your agency does for you and what you've worked out with them. That also means that benefits could be different by agency. Some you may get really none and be a true independent contractor, and some agencies may offer things, but with more services and more benefits, I'm probably gonna take more of that split.
Oh,
Because
okay.
now I'm providing things
Sounds
for
for
you,
you, right.
like an employee,
Mhm.
you know?
I
Yes.
have a rate sheet if you want me to read a couple for you.
Yes.
Did you wanna add something
Oh,
to
no, no,
that?
no, I was affirming what you were saying, yeah.
Oh,
It was- I'm
sure.
Okay, here's a rate sheet here for a freelance agency that I didn't work for, but I did work for them. Meaning, as Colin was saying, there are some agencies that allow you to become one of their employees. Can't tell them no if you become their employee, but as their employee, they take care of your taxes. They might offer a health insurance plan or so forth and so on. But I would do like overflow work for them. So for an example, an appearance fee for court would be $250 for one full day, but that's what the agency charges.
Right.
They would pay me $165 a day.
Okay.
But the reason I didn't sign on with them was working at DeKalb as a freelance agency, I got paid straight from the county, but as a freelance reporter.
Okay.
So my appearance fee would be $200 per day.
I was going to say more.
And then you have that,
Yeah.
I think it's 44 or 42, 41 an hour for takedown.
Okay.
That's basically if you're doing a civil case or trial at the courthouse, you give me $200 just for walking in the door.
Okay.
You guys paying
Do anything.
attention? It's
Yes.
$200 to appear and like $40 an hour for each additional
each
hour.
additional hour. For civil takedown per page, you might know that better. What is it, $375 for civil? I know it's 3 something for
Yes,
civil per page. I don't do civil because I'm in Superior Court. I only do what they consider to be criminal in Superior Court. I get $6 a page for every transcript I turn in. Last transcript I just turned in, it was for a 5-day trial, just for that transcript alone, not my salary or anything else. Just that transcript, I made $6,974.
Just for the
Off the
transcript.
that
transcript
trial.
by itself.
By the transcript alone. So that's almost like you would say a bonus on top of your salary if you're an employee with the courthouse. Because I get 2 separate checks working as an official. I get paid by DeKalb County, but then I also get paid by the clerk of courts for when I turn in a transcript to them. Well, in Superior Court, I'm turning in transcripts every day. Because even if I'm not in trial, those 1 or 2 days that I told you guys I'm in court, I'm taking down pleas. And those are for people who don't want to go to trial.
Right.
So, like this week coming, I'm working Tuesday and Wednesday for pleas. I have 70 positions on that calendar. So usually on average, if I have 70 on there are going to be at least 27 pleas.
And
Well, all those 27 pleas have to be turned in for transcripts. So even though I'm not in trial, all those little tiny pleas
Right.
add up.
They add up and they're fast because they're
Yeah.
reading for the most part. They're asking the same.
And they ask the same questions.
Oh, okay. And you get familiar with the questions.
Yeah, I can
Okay.
even show you guys a plea transcript that it's the same thing. So just like Racia does her shorthand strokes, because I'm hearing the same thing over and over again, over time I've made my little shorthand phrases so that I don't have to say the whole question because I know what question they're getting ready to ask. So I have
Okay.
a shorthand phrase I might use for it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So I guess, how long does it take you, or how do you develop like the basis of your own shorthand? Like, would it be
It's
like
up to you, like how much time you
dictionary,
spend practicing.
I mean, does that come through like a theory class? Does it come through just you
We
being
start,
in the field?
theory gives us like a little cheat sheet to begin with.
Yeah.
But as you go, you'll learn what works for you and what doesn't. So some things you might be able to change, and then you get to add to it. Like my judge does her jury charge. There are certain phrases she says over and over again. So perfect example, she loves the phrase, guilt must be proven beyond all reasonable doubt. I say brout, and it types out, guilt must be proven beyond all reasonable doubt. Same
Okay.
thing, guilt has to be proven through the preponderance of the evidence, prep up, and it types out the whole sentence for me. But that's with my judge because I know what she's gonna say. So I have a lot of briefs for my judge. Some of the attorneys, like in Superior Court, each courtroom is assigned a set of assistant district attorneys. If you're working with the same person, you start to figure out how they have a pattern.
Right.
You start making up little shorthand phrases for them. And sometimes I do a little cheat sheet because until you get used to saying it on a regular basis, sometimes you might forget.
It
But
happens as
being
you're
there-
talking too. Like
Yeah.
as you're taking a job down, sometimes you'll find that like as you're taking down, because I'll do like part-time transcription as well. So like I'll get jobs that like I'll do remotely from home, and like you'll hear people, patterns will emerge. People love certain words. Like everybody has their one thing that they say all the time, and it comes through when they're speaking.
The personalization I understand kind of comes as you're doing it, but I meant more so, you know, with, I guess, you know, you're primarily working in criminal court. So at what point did you build kind of, I guess, your own personal basic dictionary without conflicts just for like criminal legal proceedings?
I started doing that while I was probably my second semester, because the second semester you're in theory 2. So in theory 1, they just give you a little sheet of little. But once you have the template of how to build, then it's like, okay, you basically want to pick words that aren't real words.
Right.
Because your computer will type out that word. So as you're going, you just start, and like, I want to say when I started taking the CAT class for the software, that was probably maybe my 4th or 5th semester. Well, that instructor gave us like a book of samples of different phrases that other people use. And
So
it
you
might
can
be
like
5.
look it up if you're looking for like a particular phrase.
Yeah, or you
online.
could sometimes, if you have time, you can just go through when they download a dictionary in your software for you. There
Okay.
might already be a shorthand or a brief
Right.
already, but for me, for some reason, certain briefs I couldn't use because my computer didn't recognize it coming from me. Like in theory, I couldn't say keek and cack for Q&A. I actually had to say Kiko and Kako because when I said keek, my computer typed cake. And when I said cack, my computer typed the word cat. And I never had a t sound at the end,
Gotcha, yeah.
but once I changed software, keek and cat came up. And because I was so accustomed to doing Kiko and Kako, those are 2 syllables that helped me to get faster. So when I got ready to test, because I was used to saying 2 syllables, I had to speak a little quicker than the average reporter. So once I got to drop down to just 1 syllable, I breezed through it.
And what software do voice writers work with?
We start off using Dragon when we're in Theory 1, which most average person should know a little bit about Dragon. It's the equivalent of talking to your cell phone
Right.
to do
Mhm.
talk to text. After we get a little more advanced and they introduce us, we have Eclipse. And we always say if Dragon is a man, Eclipse is the woman that makes him better. So, yes.
That's so funny you said that because I'm in law school and I work at a law firm right now and I have to read depositions all day long. And there is a company, there is an Eclipse reporting firm.
Yeah.
But I was just going to ask you because I've been attending depositions and seeing, I even talked to one of the court reporters that came, it got canceled, she got $150 back when went home.
Yep.
But I was going to ask you, as far as, I've been doing my research online about scoping, and I guess that's like, well, for people who don't know, that's like the editing part of it that comes afterwards. I was wondering, like, when you do these big jobs, like $6,900 job, do you employ scopers to help you edit if you're like, since you have, you know, full-time jobs?
I have
and
one
things like that?
scopist and I have one typist / proofreader that works
Okay.
for me. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll need to make this the last question, just out of respect for all your time. We told you so it's 11:45, and so want to make sure we get to our last question because we still have some information to go over.
Okay, gotcha. I think we're done.
Yeah, I think we're
You
good.
good? Yeah.
Mhm.
You're good?
I think that was the last question.
Okay, you're good, you're good. Okay. Well, while I'm setting up for the transition, maybe in summary, and coming from an honest place, why would you tell somebody to do what you're doing? You do work very hard. It's great money, but it's not easy. Why would you recommend this career?
I just explained this because I've been back and forth to Florida. I just had a death in the family, and was a mother. But everyone kept asking me, like every time we call, I hadn't been home since November, and it's a hop skip from here. My family lives in South Florida. Hadn't been home since November. Before I started doing court reporting, I went home every other month. So their thing is, what are you doing that you don't have time to come home and visit? And it's my job. I said it's the hardest job I've ever done, but it's the most fulfilling job I've ever done. And I said outside of becoming a parent, I think this is the most fulfilled I've ever felt because I'm doing something that's really hard, but I'm really good at it. So that's the enjoyment for me. It's not just the aspect of being in the courtroom, because if I wasn't in the courtroom, I'm sure I'd be doing depositions or something like that. So I don't feel like I'm doing something important because I'm in the courtroom. I provide a service that's really needed, and I do the best I can at it. So I don't mind putting in as many hours as I do. But I will say this is the most fulfilled I felt, and this is my third career I'm on. All I ever wanted to be was a teacher.
Right.
And just moving forward through life as I got older, it's like I just felt I was going to work every day and wasn't enjoying myself. And finding this, I wish I had found this 15 years ago.
Right.
I wish I had.
I was going to say too, to piggyback on yours, I coached gymnastics, and one of my parents was a court reporter. And every time I would call her, she could always come. She could always, in the morning, she could meet in the afternoon, she could meet at the competition, she could be, man, where you work? Because you could be everywhere, and she will come flawless, cars, the money, how much is it, coach? This, I mean, I'm like, I need to refocus. So she was saying, oh, court reporter, I'm a court reporter, girl, you should check into it. I'm just,
And that's how the court reporters
Yeah.
that came into my office to take the certification exams, or they even came, because a lot of court reporters, as you become certified, there are more certifications you can take to increase your pay. So I see the court reporters coming in, and I'm like, okay, you're dressed better than me.
Right, that's what.
Because I also do the certification testing
Yeah.
for doctors and lawyers, and you name it, we did the certification test. And to me, the court reporters were the ones that came in. They seemed the happiest, nicest, well-dressed.
Right.
And as a woman, I'm checking out your shoes.
Right.
checking out your purse.
Yeah.
So that's what got me interested in just talking with people. And I mean, if you guys come to Brown, some of the people you'll get to meet, one of them is the Burskis. It's a couple, Maxine and Richard, right?
Yeah, they've actually moved, so you don't see them in Atlanta very much anymore.
Blue Ridge. I've been up to the mountain.
Oh, okay.
For them
Yes.
to get to the mountains.
But they've come through my office several times. I remember I had Maxine to autograph a book for me. She came through my office and they were constantly testing because they wanted to keep bettering themselves. And they decided when they got ready to retire, they still loved what they were doing. So they came in to do their captioning certification so they could work remotely from their cabin. They had a cabin built up in the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Okay.
And they came in through the office to do that testing. So the job I had put me in a really good position to find out about different careers. And
Okay.
I'm telling you, court reporters just seem to be the happiest bunch
Right.
that came through there. It's kind of like people that get into teaching for the wrong reasons. Of course, they're going to be miserable, but the teachers that genuinely love children and wanted to better them, they love what they did. And that's how I started out with
Right.
teaching. And just so happened the school I worked at closed, and I
Okay.
just couldn't fit in anywhere else.
Right.
So the same way I started out with teaching, I just loved what I did, and I look forward every morning to get up. I don't care if I go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning working on a transcript. I'm still up at 5:30 to get ready to go back into court, and I'm happy and I'm excited.
Thank you, Sonia. I wish we were just stopping on that. That was so perfect.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. And you have become that court reporter who are now staring at your shoes, by the way.
I
That's
saw.
the first thing I was thinking
I
was
saw
like,
her when she got up. Yeah, I saw her when she got up.
Thank you so much, Sonia. And if you wouldn't mind staying behind, we're going to wrap up in like 15 minutes. So I'm going to have Felicia Chess-Bloor come up. And Felicia works with us here at Brown College of Court Reporting. She is our financial aid coordinator. And she's going to talk to you about paying for school, which is a reality, and it's something that every applicant
Thank
for
you.
any
That was
college has to
good.
be thinking about and talking about, okay? So let's start with this presentation.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I am Felicia, like Carlette mentioned, I'm the financial aid coordinator here. So for students that decide to go to Brown, I'm the person that helps them if they want to use financial aid or VA benefits. We do all of that in my office. And I just want to give you a quick general overview of what financial aid is and how you get it. How many people have used financial aid before? Okay, most people. So, so financial aid is a lot of different things.
I'm fine, thank you. No, you're fine.
Grants, scholarships, work study, or federal loans. And we're going to go into a little bit of detail about each. Grants basically is money that you don't repay. It's what the government refers to as gifting. Pell Grant, SBOG, are some of the more popular ones.
That's okay.
Right now for teachers. Scholarships is considered financial aid, but it doesn't actually come from the Department of Education. So it isn't federal money. It's money that students have to search for. A lot of you've probably done that. It generally comes from corporations and organizations. Work study is financial aid, but the payout is different. It's not paid directly to your tuition. This school does work study, so it's more like a part-time job and you receive a paycheck for it. And federal loans are low interest money. It does have to be repaid, but it has special options that traditional loans don't. So they're not credit-based. They have a low fixed interest rate. And the qualifier for them, you don't need co-signers or anything like that, which you would with a traditional loan. And this is basically just going over some of the more common. On the left, the grants is what we mentioned, SEOG. This is supplemental grants. Pell Grant is the most popular. Most people have heard of that. So
Right.
those are things that you don't have to repay. Student loans, there are different types of student loans you can get from the Department of Education. Subsidized and unsubsidized loans. If you're not familiar with those terms, subsidized it means that it's a need-based loan, so the government actually pays the interest on that for you whole time you're in school, and then for a 6-month grace period after you graduate. Purpose loans was an additional loan, but the government is actually phasing that one out. Parent Plus loans are for students that are dependent, meaning that the Department of Ed still requires their parent information on their FAFSA. That's not required, but for students that need additional money, their parent can actually take out a loan in their own name to help their student, their dependent child, with their tuition. How do you apply for financial aid? So it's federal. So every school that uses financial aid is going to be the same first step, which is the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And in order to complete the FAFSA, you have to have something called an FSA ID and password, which equates to your online signature. You do everything electronically with the Department of Ed. Way back in the day, some of you may have remembered the PIN number, which I missed. It was a 4-digit PIN number, which is a little bit easier, but this is fine too. So you complete the FAFSA for everything, Pell loans, all of it through that one application. The second step for students that are going to take loans, because you don't have to take student loans if generally what we actually do is once you complete a FAFSA, we give you an estimate and show you everything that you're eligible for based on the FAFSA and the amounts. And then it's up to the student to decide what you want to take and how much. So you can personalize your financial aid. But for students that do want to use student loans, they have to complete a master promissory note or an MPN, which is a promise to pay any loans that they're going to take. And then all schools have specific requirements. We have a system called VFAO, or that stands for the Virtual Financial Aid Office. And what our students complete is something called an interview, which is basically a lot of reading. It's more like a very detailed explanation of what loans are, what different aspects of financial aid are, so that students can make an informed decision and decide, what they want to use and how much they want to use. Dependent versus independent. So when you complete the FAFSA, there's a little section of the FAFSA that they'll ask you a series of questions. If the answer is no to all of those questions, then the Department of Ed considers you to be a dependent student. Out of all of the government entities, the Department of Education has the highest age of independent. So you actually have to be 24 on the first day of the year to be considered independent. If not, you can still use financial aid. You just have to have parents' information on your FAFSA. That's pretty much it. So you have to be 24 years of age. But for a person that's under 24, they could be a veteran, they could be married, have dependents of their own that they provide at least 50% of their financial support. That would also possibly be independent.
Do we have anyone here today who's, not to shout you out, but if we have anyone here who's under 24? Well, it's like I said earlier, we get mostly career changers here and not a lot of folks coming right out of high school, so that's what's typical. Just wanted to know. Okay.
It's changing though. I mean, just in the 3 years it's taken me, I'm seeing not many still, but a lot more than I did when I first started. People that are coming, they're younger, that are coming in out of high school, or if not out of high school, then like I didn't come right out of high school, but I came. This is my first career, so.
What age, like, I know it's not like a ending age, like, when people do 30 years in the school system, they retire, but, like, how late do people work? Like, you have...
Pretty late. The average court reporter, according to our National Court Reporters Association, well, this was a report we got a couple of years ago, they said about 57, and that's part of the reason that there's such a concern in the field is that they projected it within a few years too many reporters were going to be at or nearing retirement age. Doesn't mean you have to stop. Plenty of people work past 62, 65, right? And you can keep going. There really isn't an answer to that question. You keep going until unless your hearing was affected, but that could happen kind of at any age to people, right? But you keep going until you want to. But the concern was if the court reporter population was aging, and folks coming out of school weren't on the younger end, in a generation or less, are we going to have a worse shortage than, we already have a shortage. So that's a big concern in the industry, is replacing those numbers. So if the question, I know the question is really when do you retire, and since there's not a perfect answer to that, if the concern is, am I going to be on the older end? No, because that's actually right now the average.
The average age, about 57. Oh, good.
So 57 is not the average age of retirement.
That's what I was thinking.
No,
like, I was
the
like,
average age of court reporters.
okay,
Do
okay,
you have an average general age of retirement?
No, because I mean,
Did just-
being independent, there really isn't an
Right.
answer to that
Right.
question, because most of them are independent contractors, so it's when you're done with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Veterans benefits. So we accept VA benefits, and the VA provides education and training opportunities for veterans, their spouses, their dependents, and survivors through various programs. So if you were a military member, or if you have a family member that may have education benefits that they would like to transfer to you, we do have a pretty good veteran population. So some students do choose to use that as opposed to financial aid, or maybe a combination of different things. Okay, so this is just some of the websites that students need to use if they are going to apply for financial aid. FAFSA is the first one, fafsa.ed.gov. If you have not completed a FAFSA in a very long time, or you don't remember if you have an FSA ID or password, you can go to this website to create one. It won't let you duplicate, so if you do have one in the system, they won't let you complete another one. They also have a customer service number if you need help with getting it back, because that can be tricky for some people. One of my very favorites is this one to check your student loan limits. It's called NSL's Yes. Has anyone ever heard of NSL's Yes? Does that sound familiar? I asked that a lot. Nobody's ever said it. So, NSL's Yes stands for the National Student Loan Data System. A lot of students don't know this, but if you use financial aid anywhere, this system actually checks it, and financial aid advisors always check it just to kind of let you know where you are. The reason for it is because there are limits to what you can borrow as far as student loans and Pell Grants. But most students don't know that they can actually check this themselves. If you have the FSA ID and password to complete the FAFSA, you can log into NSL's Yes, and any school that's ever taken financial aid out of your name is required to report it there. So it'll tell you, you know, how much, when, which school, what they took, whether it was grants or loans. So as far as student loans go, the amount that you can borrow is based on the level of education you're trying to obtain. So if it's an undergraduate program, through your whole life you're allowed to borrow $57,500. So whatever you've used before would be deducted from that unless you paid it back. And it's kind of like a bank account. If you paid it back, then you have the full eligibility again. Pell Grant, you can borrow that up until either you've used it for 6 full years or you obtain a bachelorship degree. So that's when Pell Grant runs out. And then the Master Promissory Note, that's studentloans.gov. There's actually a lot of great things in studentloans.gov besides the Master Promissory Note. Lots of different entrance counselings, which is just student loan information. They are, the Department of Ed really believes in giving information about student loans, interest rates, and that kind of stuff, so you can pretty readily find it. Questions? I know I ran through that fast. Any questions at all?
And I'm not sure which one of you this is more for. But so part-time online students, obviously, you know, using equipment here is not an option. So is equipment needed included in tuition?
Yes. Well, not included in tuition. I want to make it clear. It's a part of your tuition bill, but it is a separate item. So if you were to look at a bill, it's itemized separately. Does that make sense? Your
Does that affect how it's paid at all?
So yes, and I want to go back. That's actually not the presentation I wanted to use. In your packets that you're going home with, tuition rates are listed in there. Okay?
Is that in here?
In those packets.
No, I'm saying, is that in here too?
This information on the schedule. Yeah, you can jot notes from that if you'd like, because it's not written out exactly like this. So
Okay.
yeah, if you
All
want
right.
to jot those notes.
Okay.
Tuition rates are in your packets. They're in the catalog, but they're also in those the packets here. And you don't have to look at it now. I'm going to go over it verbally, but you guys actually have these packets. So when you get home, take a look at them. Okay. Tuition for the full-time programs, $4,150 per quarter. Okay, which is $4,150 per quarter versus $2,150 per quarter part-time. Okay. So $4,150 per quarter full, $2,150 per quarter part-time, and part-time online is $2,350. Okay. A quarter, there's also a calendar in your packets. A quarter is a 12-week session. Okay. So there are 4 quarters in a calendar year. We do go to school here year-round, which is different from a traditional college where most people take the summer off unless they want to take additional classes. But here we run through, summer quarter is just like all our other quarters. So we go to school 12 months out of the year, okay? Equipment needs are going to be different, obviously, between voice and steno. If you are a steno student on campus, we have rental machines when you're learning the theory, okay? And if for some reason you don't decide to stick with it, you haven't had to invest in a machine yet. If you're going beyond theory and you love it, you keep going into speed building, then you'll purchase a student machine and the corresponding software that you could put on any Windows-based computer that you already have. Laptop preferably, because you might want to travel back and forth to school with it.
And
right?
how much is that to purchase?
The equipment, the machine plus the software is $18.95 plus interest if you take our payment plan. And we'll talk to you more about that if you're moving forward with steno, okay? The voice writers, they buy a new laptop, and I really want to stress it is brand new. There are 2 softwares that go onto it that you're purchasing. These 2 softwares do not play well on a machine where there's not enough speed and space, which is why we want to use a brand new laptop, because we don't want anything else on it, really. So brand new laptop you get with 2 softwares plus a mask. When you're new on campus in the voice program, again, you don't have to buy everything right away, because we're going to teach in our computer classes. The computer labs, those computers all have the software. So all you really need to purchase is the mask, because obviously you don't want to share that. Connect your mask to the computers in the lab and get through class. As long as you are continuing on past those first 2 quarters or so, then yeah, you'll want to purchase all the rest of it. But of course you have that beginning couple of quarters, sort of a grace period steno or voice when you're in theory to kind of see, am I sticking with this before I invest? The difference for the online students, you don't have access to our computer labs because you're doing it from home. You don't have access to our rental equipment, so you are in those instances purchasing the equipment up front. If you're applying for financial aid, the aid that you're eligible for after you pay tuition, the remaining aid, the excess aid after tuition is paid, can go towards equipment costs.
And how much is the voice writing equipment if you're doing the online program?
So the laptop plus the professional version of Dragon, Naturally Speaking, is $18.53. We do give you a 2-quarter payment plan, so that doesn't need to be paid all at once. Okay, 2 quarters is 6 months roughly. The mask and the theory books, $633.54, and the Eclipse software is $599.50. Okay, you don't need the Eclipse software right away until you're taking the class where that software is being taught. So really for the first year, you buy the laptop, the Dragon Naturally Speaking software, the mask and books. At the beginning of your second year, you'll come back and purchase the Eclipse software. Okay, and this is specifically, again, when you're starting online. When you're starting on campus, you just need the mask and books to get started. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right. If you're moving forward, we will come back to this in detail, obviously, because we want you to understand that. But in the interest of time, I kind of want to move forward and see if there are any last questions. Okay. So the last topic we have is to talk about the admissions process and how to apply to start school. And so that you get a break from hearing from me, I want to thank you so much for being here on a Saturday to learn all about this. And we're going to wrap up by hearing about the admissions process from one of our admissions representatives who may have spoken with a few of you, Miss Renee Whiteley.
Hello, and thank you everyone for coming out this Saturday. First and foremost, I want to introduce myself. I'm Renee Whiteley, one of the admissions representatives here at Brown. And I just want to thank everyone for taking the time and really, taking that next step as to, is this something I really want to do? You got up this morning, you're like, Saturday, why am I going somewhere on a Saturday morning? I felt the same way. But the thing is, life, time waits for no man, or woman. So the point is, if you feel like you're passionate enough about this, if you feel like this is something you can see yourself doing, if you can imagine yourself in Sonia's shoes, making that $6,000 check, that sounded really good to me. So, it's definitely something worth thinking about. But onto the admissions process. So I know everyone got one of these papers in your packet, so I'm just going to roughly run through this for you real quick. It's a pretty simple admissions process. An offer of admission will not be able to be made until this process has been complete. First and foremost, there is a $50 application fee. It is non-refundable, but in the event that timing isn't right, then we can always hold on to that for at least 2 quarters for you. Okay? So there is an enrollment application you'll be filling out. You sign an enrollment agreement. After that, the next step is to pass your entrance exams. There's 2 entrance exams. One is typing. I heard we got some super typers in here, so you should be fine. 25 words a minute. That includes errors, so that's nothing. You can do that, right? The next thing is the English test, okay? So the English test, that consists of really understanding where your vocabulary is at when it comes to English, what you're, where you're at as far as that level is concerned. Also, understanding word tenses and different forms of words. So, for example, the word is catastrophe, and this person, he was in a catastrophe accident. What version of catastrophe would you use in that event? Catastrophic.
Catastrophic.
Boom.
Right.
Done. Right? So, and another one, pick the right word for, to complete the sentence. The girl was so gullible or indolent that she fell for all of my jokes.
Gullible.
Right. I don't even know what indolent means.
I was like, what's that word?
Right. But you know which one was right.
Right.
Exactly. And that's how you pass the test. So that's my thing. You know, we don't expect you to make 100 on it. 75 is the minimum baseline there. Okay. So that's the thing. Just passing those tests. Then after you pass the test, then the next part is getting your proof of education. And one is a proof that, you know, of citizenship, and then proof that you can receive aid. So that can come in the form of your driver's license, social security card. What else can we use? Birth certificate, that one. And, or valid passport. Passport would actually suffice for both of those, okay? And then, we need proof of education. So, have you, we only need one though. Either your GED, college, or high school transcript would suffice, okay? So, after you complete all of those and you complete your financial side with the lovely Miss Felicia, you're good to go, okay? And you'll be able to start in October. So, that's the application process. It's pretty straightforward, but I definitely would, if you plan on doing this, if you really think that this is something that you want to do, I would definitely start by, you know, just refreshing your memory a bit, you know, studying up a little bit, reading a book every month just so you familiarize yourself with sentence structure, and, you know, just helping you when it comes to, because I feel like anybody can use a refresher, especially when you get in front of a test, because it's a 50 question test. You get about 40 minutes to take the entire test. Okay, so, you know, it'll be fun. Okay, so with that being said, behind this good old page here is the application for admission. So, came out today. There she is. There's the star of the show right there, Sonia. So what I will say is that, you know, you took the time out today, and at this point, you should have learned everything that you need to learn as far as the program is concerned, you know, how long it's going to take, what it looks like afterwards for someone that's looking into being a court reporter. You know, you have all the information. So what question I would ask myself is the right time? You know, am I ready to take the next step to be in a dynamic career, you know, something that's rewarding, and to give me the profession that I really want? And if you answered yes to those questions, then maybe take a step and move forward. We have classes starting October 1st, and the next classes don't start until winter, so don't wait until winter. You know, if this is something that you know that you want to do, just like Graciela as well as Sonia took those steps. Gracia, I'm sorry. My bad. That's uncomfortable.
That's okay.
But,
it happens.
My bad, Gracia. We're still cool though, right? All right. So the thing is, just like these ladies, they all had to sacrifice and, you know, do what they needed to do for the next career in their lives, and just to clearly change them, you know, for the better. You know, don't wait. Okay. So go ahead. And is anyone ready to start the application process today? Okay.
I am not.
All right. Well, if so, you know, well, of course we're going to follow up with you. I'm sure you've heard from me a couple times.
It's fine.
I'm
Thank
positive.
you.
I'm positive. So any other than that, thank you all for your time, and we look forward to hearing from you soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Of course, of course. There's still some snacks and you know, some sweets.